All rise, ladies and gentlemen. Judgment Day has come to Sportswire Radio because our champion of dominant breakout wrestling is here. He is the prophet of purgatory. He is God's true son. He is the leader of divinity, and his resume speaks for itself. Arguably one of the greatest champions to have ever come to Sportswire Radio. He is the longest reigning dominant breakout wrestling champion in history. He is the only three-time champion of the world. He was the first number one contender winner. He has done it all, and now he has finally arrived to Sportswire Radio to address the fallout of dominant breakout wrestling's most recent show, Double Cross. He'll talk about that, plus who knows what else is on his mind. He needs no further introduction, but because it is his first time here, and we certainly want to avoid that fate of purgatory and Judgment Day, he is going to get that introduction that everybody else gets here over the past 5 years. So with that, without further ado here on the Sports Report, number one global sports show, the reigning, defending, dominant breakout wrestling champion of the world, Mr. Judgment. The champ is here.
Evening, all you mortal filth bags. It's good to be with you from one member of the church to another, Mr. Reverend Tom Bryce to the prophet. Yes, indeed.
I certainly see that you do have a finishing move called the Judgment Slam. You've also do Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit and all that stuff in between. I will definitely get into all that, certainly. And people are tuned in, champions and different wrestlers from different countries. I'll get into them shortly. But Mr. Champion, obviously, it is a tremendous honor. We certainly want to avoid the fate that some recent victims have faced, and certainly even some friends of Sportswire Radio recently. But the fallout from DBW Double Cross. As the show ends, we see Definity come in, and we see you guys lay a number to Ego and some, and I have to ask you, Mr. Judgment, where do we go from here after what you guys did as the show went off a few short days ago at Double Cross?
So, first of all, let me just put the true holy grail of DBW down. Let me just put that down here. So, let's get something straight here.
Yes, sir.
So there's a little holy grail gauntlet that DBW, the president, and the management team of DBW decide to put together without my blessing. I want to mind you that. And, they pretty much just think that someone's going to get an easy one-way ticket to not only face me for the richest prize in all of underground wrestling, but to face me for the DBW World Championship at our biggest show of the year, World War, which will be recorded on September 23rd. And it just so happened that the Blaze Ace Christian won that gauntlet match. Kudos. I celebrated your victory with the exact thing that's going to happen at World War. That's how we're going to celebrate it again. Because there is, see, one thing that people don't understand nowadays is the correct way to parent your children. And I will show the Blaze Ace Christian true parenting, how a father treats his son. I will show him. I will make him regret ever winning that match. He should have never won it. He was not supposed to win it. Someone else was supposed to win it. But, fate is unavoidable. Purgatory and judgment are also unavoidable, no matter who.
There's no question about that. I'll certainly get into some of that, and certainly I am not one to talk about how I was as a son to my parents, because certainly growing up in Brooklyn, they definitely were stern with me at times. But it's not about me. But I have to ask a question that you just literally said. You kind of stole my thunder because you are the champion. But did Mr. Christian almost in a way punch his death ticket on September the 23rd based after winning this match? Because it sounds like after what you did and what you just said just now, Mr. Judgment, it sounds like Mr. Christian might be saying his final words, and we might be seeing his funeral coming up on September the 23rd.
So there's a couple mistakes that Ace Christian made at Double Cross. Number one, winning that gauntlet match, the biggest mistake. But the second mistake that he made was joining those filth bags of ego. Those guys are complete and utter garbage. They are filth to the fullest extent of the word. They are filth bags. Should have never done that.
Well, interesting, because I'm going to get to them, because obviously we had on Mr. Havoc. He was on here in Sportswire. He's our World Extreme Champion. But, I'll come back to Mr. Christian shortly. But, there was something I noticed also before the ending of the show went off, in that Cyrus kind of walked out there and didn't help out Mr. Christian. And I was kind of wondering your thoughts, because you have, I would say, maybe one of the long-standing rivalries or history, whatever you might want to call it, with Cyrus. And I'm curious on what was your impressions or thoughts on that, Mr. Judgment.
So I'm assuming you're talking about the Thursday Night Thunder Punch episode where we had Divinity, myself,
yes, sir,
Sammy Nothing, and Caden Phoenix against Damian Fatal, and welcome back to Bill.
A man you've had history with as well, certainly.
Indeed, he is a pus bucket. And then you also had Cyrus, and then that goober Corey Graves. He's a filth bag.
Yes, who you also have recently defeated. Sure, absolutely.
Indeed. At the end of that match, I think that the It Factor Cyrus saw the writing on the wall. There was no victory in that match. So why stay in there and take further punishment between two mortals that are less than? Why stay in that match? It's a lose-lose situation. There's no reason to stay in the match. So the best thing, the smartest thing he's ever done was walk away out of that match.
Is it almost, how can I put it? There's an old expression called, sometimes your life flashes before your eyes. Do you think that that's what Cyrus maybe saw, and that's kind of why he left the match?
I'm not quite sure. Cyrus, the It Factor, because of our tenuous past.
I mean, you guys have history going back, I think, like about a decade or so, give or take.
It's insane, that guy. And unfortunately, he's one of the few individuals on this planet that have a decent winning record against myself.
I'm not going to bring that up because you're the champion.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. It was almost like, I don't know if it was just a glimpse of mutual respect after all these years, or if it was, he saw the writing on the wall. He saw that his end was Nya, and I was the one to finish it. And he just backed away because he wants a future.
Well, we're going to see what's left, because speaking of the future, I'm curious. Since you regained the title a few months ago, you obviously took the title from Scorpion. You defeated Corey Graves, who had challenged you and said, well, I've been in here half a decade. I've never faced you. I've never got a shot. And you obviously disposed of him. I know where we're going toward the show on September the 23rd, but I have to ask you, because you're the champion, you're the standard bearer. What is left for you to accomplish as champion? And I look at this roster. I mean, obviously, we know what's going to happen with Mr. Christian, but I mean, who's left? What's left for you to accomplish? I mean, you've pretty much run through this roster. Am I missing something, Mr. Judgment?
You're not missing a damn thing. So the one thing that I can tell you is that the job of the person who accuses you, the job of Mr. Judgment, is never done. Sins need to be accounted for, and souls need to be judged. My job is never done. I will continue to be on the precipice of DBW until a worthy mortal steps up to the plate. And that's just not happening. That's just not happening. It's not going to happen with Ace Christian. It's not going to happen with anybody else. That's just how it's going to go. I am the final boss of DBW. That's just the way it is. Anywhere I
I
go.
don't see. Yeah, listen, and we have a big roster in Dominant Breakout Wrestling, which you, oh, by the way, can go on YouTube and check them out at Dominating Breakout Wrestling. That is Dominating Breakout Wrestling. They're also on Facebook as well. And I want to get to some comments here before I lose my train of thought. I want to say hello to a very dear friend of mine, Mr. the Lawman Kyle Kennedy, who says good morning because he's out in the UK and it's 1:10 in the morning. Another fellow wrestling star. And of course, he was a member of the Nonstop Action Wrestling Tag Team Champions over in the Society. I hope that the Lawman is doing well these days. Daniel Banner from GT Ministries, who did the Hadouken, tried to get a win over somebody in a Rumble to eliminate them. A guy, Sean Only, very similar to you in a lot of ways. And he tried that. But he did say, hello, Tom, and your honor, Mr. Judgment. And then he put Judgment because he put Judge Man, obviously. Well, it's 1 o'clock in the morning in the UK, so give him a place. Give him a chance. The place I train as at a church. How ironic is that? Yes, he trains in the Fountains Church in Bradford. And obviously, you are the man of divinity. And obviously, you are certainly our final boss for sure. Joe Stone. Joe is the brand new DKW champion of the world over at Dark Cryptic Wrestling. And Joe says, hello, Mr. Judgment. How you all doing? This individual who you might have heard of, his name is Chris Craven. He is friends with people you referenced from Ego, saying, who is this Festus-looking SOB thinking he is talking stuff about Ego? And I want to say hello, by the way, to our friend at VTW Wrestling, who, by the way, do a great job out there and work very close with you guys. So I'll come back to them shortly. But I have to let you address this comment from Mr. Craven about Ego. Obviously, we know that Mr. Havoc's been on here a few times, and the guys are scheduled to be on here at some point in the near and distant future. But would you like to respond to this comment, sir?
So here's who is this? I don't know you. I'm not coming as a guest on your podcast, you filth bag. Chris Warburton of Ego. They're garbage. You're garbage. If you support Ego, you're trash. You're trash. You're a filth bag. You're a filth bag. That's all there is to it. They're all filth bags. Their followers are filth bags. Anyone who likes Ego can go kick rocks.
Let me ask you, though, going into Ego, obviously they have gold as well. They've been kind of maybe the group that could compete with you guys. We haven't seen a lot of all 6 of yous in the ring at the same time, really, this season. I mean, is there any thoughts that you could say, you know what, Havoc and his size, you and your size, obviously the Heretics and the tag team champions there on the other side with Colin and AJ? I mean, what do you think on those possibilities should that arise?
So here's the thing. What I can say is the Heretics have been shafted by management. They are the only team in DBW that has not had a one-on-one match with Ego.
Correct. I would say it's fair.
Becoming part of Divinity. That changes. That changes at World War. At World War, they finally get the one-on-one match with Ego. The Heretics of Divinity against Ego for the DBW Tag Team Championships, and those titles are coming home.
Is that what's maybe what you really strive for? I mean, I know you've got the world title, but to take those tag titles, does it almost complete really, how can I put this, total judgment, the final true stage of total domination of DBW, pun intended? Is that really kind of what's at stake here, more or less, more than what you've done? Is that a fair statement?
Fair statement. Fair statement. But what I would say is this. The championships are a stepping stone, a huge stepping stone. Whether it be the tag team titles, the world title, any championship in DBW, they are stepping stones in your career. Now, what we have to look at is different champions of our company, different champions of other companies. There are those titles that make the individual who they are. That's a majority of champions. But then there are individuals who make the title what it is. Myself, I make the DBW World Championship what it is. Its level of prestige is because I make it prestigious. Okay? I have proven that. I will continue to prove that time and time again in that ring, that I cannot be touched in that ring. When it comes to size, strength, power, speed, technical ability, move set, you name it, it's all covered. It's all covered.
I would definitely say so. I mean, 260 pounds. What are you, about 6'3", 6'4", almost in the ring, just about?
6'3".
Yeah, listen, I know because I do a lot of basketball, and I could tell how tall you because I'm 6 foot. You tower over me, so I will come back to that in a second. This individual who I addressed coming on here Tuesday, Mr. Brandon Castelletti, says, "Dad," with the question mark, obviously.
Yes, my son. My son.
Brandon,
The only thing he did wrong was fail to destroy Ace Christian.
but maybe it was good for Brandon because going up there in the ring against you. I mean, I think that might be my death wish. No.
Yeah. Either way, it's a win for me.
Well, obviously, no question about that. And by the way,
Indeed.
if you're on Instagram, make sure you follow Mr. Judgment so you can avoid your own Judgment Day at Gods_true_son. And Brandon would like to say, I got screwed. And also, I want to send my condolences to Brandon on the loss of his dog, by the way. If I could, I hope I'm not breaking anything. But Brandon, my certainly thoughts and prayers are with you on the loss of your dog. And I hope that you and yours are doing well about that. Mr. Craven would like to say LOL, and he says ego is family. I want to get in Daniel Banner because Daniel has a good comment, and I don't know if I see the similarities, but maybe you might want to comment. You remind me of an early Christopher Daniels from TNA when he did the Fallen Angel gimmick.
So I know what you're referring to, except Christopher Daniels is the side of my right thigh. Okay, let's get that out of the way first. Second, he proclaims himself to be a fallen angel. I am no fallen angel. Let's get that straight. I am the prophet of purgatory. I am the right hand of God himself. Huge difference.
Yeah, no, listen, you are definitely God's true son, and I'm not going to argue with that. And every time
Jesus gets all the credit.
Listen, and when I think of Fallen Angel, for whatever reason, I think of the Poison song, Fallen Angel. But hey, what do I know, right? Brandon would like to say, I appreciate that. But, I want to bring up this individual who at one time was the DBW Hub City champion and who lost the title at Double Cross. And he had said a few words. I did one more kind of announcement of you coming on. And that was the Double B, the Bitcoin billionaire from the land of NFTs. It's past his bedtime, a.k.a. Mr. Chase Wakefield. He called you old man. Now, I'm sure you heard those few words Mr. Wakefield had said a few hours ago. Do you have a response to Mr. Wakefield? Certainly, Mr. Wakefield's down on his luck right now, and anything else you might want to say toward him?
Oh, he is down on his luck. Oh, yes. I'm not sure that it garners my time to even respond to a filthy mortal puss bag like this guy.
Doesn't work in the company no more. I understand.
But I was watching his podcast with you, and I noticed that we all have skeletons in our closet, so to speak.
I have hundreds of them.
I saw his closet in the background, and my question to him is, why is there a disgusting, filthy maid outfit in his closet? You're a disgusting freak, Chase Wakefield.
And I just want to let you know, champ, I actually was saying, just want to remind you of this. I was actually trying to plead the fifth on saying anything about age or what you can or can't do in the ring. I was actually trying to help Mr. Wakefield as well as myself, because the last thing we want to do is anger a man of your size, your stature, and certainly what you've done in the ring. So I certainly am not that stupid. I was trying to help Mr. Wakefield, just so you know.
Yeah. So, that was a smart decision he did to lose the Hub City title and go to VTW, which I have much respect for, as my alter ego Asher Christ wrestles down there. But Chase Wakefield, he's a dirty man. He's a dirty mortal.
So is it fair to say now? Can I ask a follow up before I get to more comments? As we're here with the reigning defending DBW champion of the world himself, Mr. Judgment. Judgment Day has arrived. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Will you miss Mr. Wakefield in DBW, since obviously he's no longer a part of the roster and his contract is run out based off some of these?
I miss him. The backstage roster area will stink a lot less. You kidding me?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on that. I mean, that's certainly, obviously, that's locker room stuff. I'm not in the locker room, and Chase would like to say.
Unfortunately, I was.
Well, that's why I'm gonna plead the fifth. The maid outfit was for the goodwill. Okay. Well,
yeah, I'm sure it was. Is that what you call it? You disgusting freak.
Daniel would like to say that definitely you and The Undertaker would be a dream match. I'm actually going to go and take a different take on this, and I'm actually going to say something, and I said this to Brandon, and Brandon can actually vouch me on this. And I don't know if I said this to Chase off the air, but there is a wrestler in the UK, because obviously Daniel's from the UK, and he's a pro wrestler there, a young pro wrestler starting out, that you remind me of. You have a similar look. You have a similar move set. He's also a world champion. His name is Disciple, another pro wrestler, has been at it a long time like you. He's had a group in a company called GT Ministries UK on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. They're all over the place. They stream their shows. They're in the Fountain Church where Daniel obviously trains out of. And that's who you remind me of. You've got the same size. You have the look. I mean, that would be my dream match. The Undertaker, he's past. He's past tense. But this guy, Disciple, now I know him very well. He has come on my show at least 7 or 8 times, and he's won 2 world titles at once in the same time. Now, that would be a match I would love to see. Now, I know you may not know him because obviously you're busy dominating and doing what you do in DBW, but that would be the guy I'd love to see you in the ring with, would be this guy, Disciple. And I'll make sure Mr. Disciple hears this comment.
I accept all challenge. All challenge. And there's a big difference between being a prophet and being a disciple. One is a leader, one is a follower.
Well, in his company, he's definitely not a follower. He does have people that are kind of his disciples. In fact, they're called the Descendants. He has the Descendants. He has Stealth and he has Drill. And basically, you have the Heretics, and they kind of are Divinity, and you certainly do lead them, no question. You have Ariel as your manager, but he has the Descendants, and they kind of help him do his work. But I would say you're a little more forceful in the ring. So that's where I would say I'll let Mr. Disciple certainly see. But I want to ask you something about from VTW. And I want to give a big shout out to our friends at VTW. Just great product, great content. Beach Blast just came. I had the good fortune to speak, obviously, with Chase about them. And let me bring up VTW Wrestling. You can go back to this if it's too early, but what's your thoughts on facing Ace Christian for the DBW World title at World War? I know we kind of addressed it, but because it's VTW, I want to give you another crack at it for them.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So if you don't know, Ace Christian is my son. Yes. So he is the seed of the prophet. Okay? Let's get that straight. Okay.
Sure.
I'm the standard bearer. He may be the future, but that future is non-existent as long as I'm here. Whenever Ace Christian and I stand face to face in that ring, and I have faced Ace Christian, this will be the 3rd time.
And I noticed in VTW also is Asher Christ, right? I believe I saw that earlier today.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't get speaking as Mr. Judgment here, the people love Asher Christ. I don't understand. We're very similar, but Mr. Judgment, I don't expect you to like me. You don't have to.
My mother would always say, maybe different strokes for different floats. I don't know.
Yeah, indeed. But anyway, when it comes to Ace Christian, there is nothing that he can do to pry that DBW World Championship from me. If he thinks he's going to just walk right in after getting a one-way ticket right to the main event shot without having to truly earn it and try to defeat me, the final boss of DBW, it's just not happening. It's just not happening. I will consume his soul and make him a slave to my power.
Well, I have some news for you, Mr. Judgment, and I think you'd be curious about this. Speaking of Mr. Christian, I'm going to have him on Sportswire Radio September the 5th, 8 o'clock Eastern time. He'll be in your chair, and I'll conversely ask Mr. Christian about you, and maybe I'll even give Mr. Christian the opportunity to kind of say, maybe you want to forfeit the match, maybe you want a finger poke of doom, his first Nitro in 99, maybe you want to just take a pass on this. So I'll give him the opportunity, if he'd like, to maybe forfeit or decline the match. If you like, I could ask him those questions come September the 5th, if you want.
You should. To look out for his best interest, you should. And FYI, he will not be sitting in the chair of the prophet. He will not be sitting on my throne. He can go outside.
It was a figure of speech, to be fair.
He can go outside around back and sit under a tree while it
burns. Well, I wasn't going to ask where he's going to sit. I just thought it'd be a figure of speech because I always use that as a way to hype up my guests coming on. But I will come back to Mr. Wakefield, who says, I'll come back to DBW just to beat you for that DBW World Championship again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. After you tuck your tail between your legs and let Maxis verbally destroy you, you filth bag. Yeah, Maxis Fatal. Yeah. Where's he? Yeah, Last Anarchy champion. Yeah, kudos there. Yeah. Yeah, you get into a verbal little spat with that little ridiculous freak. And then you, the bigger freak, you walk out. You walk out of DBW and you go to VTW, which VTW is getting a hell of a talent in Chase Wakefield. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Okay. Hub City champion, inaugural Hub City champion. I will give him that. But to tuck his tail and run, disgusting.
I guess you could say, though, maybe he went south and because he couldn't hang with the big boys here, though, in DBW. Is that a fair statement?
Unfortunately, his stocks were falling faster than his digital currency. So,
well, I don't know if you heard the part, and I have more comments. I promise I'll get to them. But I actually was telling you about the story because I actually really did invest in Bitcoin. I actually could have made money, but I could have made, let's just say, a lot more figures than I should have made, that I might be in Mr. Wakefield's position in real life. And unfortunately, I'm not, but I did okay. But I should have did a lot better. But obviously, that's for Mr. Wakefield to decide. I do have more comments here. Daniel Banner would say, now I think about Mr. Judgment, it looks like Hugo Strange from the DC Comics. Do you ever get that? Anybody tell you that before? Because I haven't. I don't know. What do you think? Okay. No. I don't know if it's a compliment or not. I want to bring up somebody that I know is certainly listening to this with vested interest, and that is from the IMF, which are on YouTube at IMF Wrestling 666. You've probably heard of these guys. They're called the Foundation. It's Omen Black and Soldier GP. They're big guys also. They're very big guys, and all they want to say, though, is good evening. The Foundation is here. Anything you want to say to that?
Good evening, mortals.
Okay, now these guys,
be with you.
They're in Iowa. They've been working the rounds, though. I've seen them in Michigan. They're about to hit Wisconsin. I've seen them in Ohio. I hear they're going a lot of other places across the country. So I don't know if they're going to be coming toward your way in the Mid-Atlantic, but who knows what the future brings. I have somebody here that's come on here and says, Mr. Judgment, I'm a huge fan. Can I ask you some questions? What is your favorite match of all time and why? Let's say one of your favorite matches specifically that you've wrestled. Let's go with that.
My favorite match of all time. My God. So my favorite match of all time was against this entity known as Novin.
I've heard that. Yes, I've heard that come up before.
So him and I have this sacred pact, as we are on occasion a team called the Prophets of the Netherworld. And my favorite match was a match of my design. Okay. I believe it was at Judgment Day, which used to be our biggest show of the year. And it was called a crucifix match. Where
I had that in my notes. What a small
where the only way to win.
You wrestled in a crucifix and a penitentiary match.
Yeah, so the crucifix match, the only way to win is to literally strap your opponent to a cross, fully strap them in to win the match. That's the only way to win. And that match, the story that we told for the promo segments building up to that match, and then the match itself, just perfection. If you don't watch any other match that I've ever done, watch Mr. Judgment versus Novin from Judgment Day. Incredible.
And you can definitely do all your due diligence on Dominant Breakout Wrestling. Again, it's Dominating Breakout Wrestling. It's on YouTube. They've got over 3,000 plus members. The most recent show already has several hundred views. You want to check all that. They're also on Facebook. And Mr. Judgment himself is also on Instagram at gods_true_son. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I'm the man behind Sportswire Radio. And if you are on YouTube out there, give us a sub at Sportswire Radio. We're also on Twitter at Thomas Bryce 2017, Instagram at the Sports Report 2021. I'm also on Facebook at Tom Bryce. I just crossed the 1,500 friend milestone, so thank you to all of my friends, whether you're real or not. And I'm also on sportnarium.com/play. We have an internet radio station that I program 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and we play music, we play talk, we simulcast these shows. And if you have a podcast out there that you can definitely get a chance. If you want to message me, I'll play it. But we're having a great time right now at Mr. Judgment. I'll have more coverage tomorrow with Hillbilly Tilly, who is from the Alliance Wrestling League. That'll be at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so look forward to that. Also, Monday, coming up with another pro wrestling star, that is Vito Fratelli, who was supposed to be here yesterday, but I was a little under the weather, so we're going to move it to Monday night right after Raw. And Vito Fratelli is the belt collector, they call him in California. He's been in Mexico. He's been all over the place in the West over there. He's also wrestled the likes of Alexander Hammerstone, who was the MLW champion, Jacob Fatu, also TJP, a long list of stars he has wrestled. And I want to thank my very good friend promoter from the Wrestling Warzone connection out there in California, Darrow Johnson, for the great opportunity. That'll be Monday right after Raw. But in the meantime, we are here with Mr. Judgment, and Joe would like to say that Mr. Judgment is his hero, and also that he saw the match. It was amazing. And I have a good comment here from somebody. DBW is a fun place to go. Been there a few times and have had a great time every single time. And he says, Gooba. What's the Gooba hashtag?
Yes, so also Tyler Aiken, much respect to the Gooba.
How you doing, Tyler? Thank you for tuning in, my friend.
Yes, much respect to him. And also another, I would say, in top 5 is when Chase, at that time, it was Adam Anderson.
Yes.
We went through a couple name changes.
We spoke about it on the
Yes, I heard. So he was actually a servant under the Prophet.
I noticed that.
Yes, we were the New Brotherhood. And we had a match with Tyler Aiken and Ecstatic. They were called the Bad Sons. And they were the VTW Tag Team Champions. We were the DBW Tag Team Champions. And we had a phenomenal match. Probably one of my favorite tag team matches I've ever done with those two guys. It was an absolute blast with them. So much respect to the Gooba.
Absolutely. I want to say hello to Tyler, and anytime we can do anything to promote wrestlers, we'll always do that here in Sportswire Radio. And I want to come back because I do want to ask you a lot about your career, but I want to talk about still current stuff in DBW because we have this show coming up September the 23rd, which we obviously talked about World War, and you can answer this any way you want, but I kind of feel like in watching these programs, obviously Thursday Night Thunder Punch, you got a bunch of shows out there, your last recent shows. And I was speaking to this with some of the talent off the air, just about you guys are building something really special in that you're seeing the crowds, you're seeing the atmosphere, there's electricity. And you can answer this any way you want, but I kind of feel like this might be the biggest show the company is yet about to offer on September the 23rd for World War. What's your thoughts on a statement like that?
So if I can put on my promoter's hat for a minute.
You can do anything you want. You're the champion. What am I going to tell you? You're 6'3", 260. You think I'm going to argue with you?
I'll take the miter off for a minute. So we are really putting everything into World War. We're changing the setup of the venue. We've noticed that our crowds have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, like I said, the last two shows, the two big shows you had, you guys have it's just like real electricity.
Yeah. It's very reminiscent of a good quality independent show, even though we're still underground wrestling. But there's a lot of things we're adding. We're adding a video screen for the entranceway for our next show, and then at halftime we have a live band performing, a live local band here to the area. So, and it's going to be a stacked, massive card. We're looking at about 8 to 9 matches.
Wow.
It's going to be massive. And we've already gotten a lot of requests about seeing the show live because, in my opinion, I mean, I see a lot of wrestlers that wrestle at different places and everything, but there's something about wrestling in DBW where people just perform to 110%. And it's just such a high quality level of wrestling in the ring, the characters, just the everything, just getting these crowds, into the matches themselves, which has been a huge recent focus of ours with our crowds growing is we're more focused on the live performance just as much as we are on the product that we release on YouTube. But it's been really good, and we're really thinking that World War, with all the matches that we're going to be announcing, every title on the line, plus some other special matches, plus special guests from other companies as well. It's really going to be amazing. We have to crown a brand new global champion because RJ Carnage relinquished the title. due to an injury and due to pursuing other things. I
Sure.
always wish the best to RJ Carnage. So we have to crown a new global champion, and we're also bringing back, which I'm announcing here to the public officially, we are bringing back our what we called, it was a concept championship called the Anarchy Championship. Where that title is always contested in a triple threat, fatal four-way or more. It's never a one-on-one match. So it's one of the hardest titles to defend because you're in a constant state of anarchy with having multiple opponents to try to defend the title. So we'll be bringing that championship back to DBW at World War as well and crowning a new Anarchy champion.
Wow. I mean, if it didn't get any better than this, you guys are bringing back a championship. You're going to be crowning another champion. This sounds to me like this is going to be a really cool thing. Plus, we have a band playing at halftime. And, I always thought that was so fascinating because I've done some stuff earlier in my career with this with boxers. And, a lot of boxers, they would have like entrance music. And sometimes you'd see like you'd have an artist, they would perform, whether it be an intermission. I kind of think the band thing is a pretty cool idea because I always wondered, and you can answer any way you want because you're a promoter, let's say outside Mr. Judgment. You would know a little better than me, although I think I kind of have an idea because I have friends in the music industry. But I've always thought that in wrestling, I'd like to see more of bands play. I'd always thought that would be a crossover because I think in a lot of ways, a local wrestling show and a local band, the kind of the vibe and the followings are very similar. What's your thoughts on that?
No, you're right. You're right. And it's all about, at the end of the day, a wrestling show is all about that. It's putting on a show. It's being entertaining.
And wrestling needs music because what do
Yes.
people come out to? Music.
Right.
Duh.
Right. So, and we've actually had them at a show before when we were in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
They performed live before. They actually did the setup in the ring, is where they performed. So it was pretty cool. But, it's, going to be great to get the guys back and perform indoors in front of a live crowd. And, it also helps them too. And it helps us, it gives the DBW product exposure to the Two Sides to Die fans and vice versa. So it's a complete networking, harmony thing that it just works best to just really spread the name out of both products of Two Sides to Die plus the DBW product.
Do you feel, and I'll get to comments, I know people want to talk to you and I will get to people in a second, but
Sure.
Do you feel like there's like a certain electricity when you know that something like really big is about to happen or something that's on the cusp of something special? Because I've done this a lot in my career. I've done all different types of things. I've been doing this for 5 years and I'm starting to feel in your product those vibes of other things I've covered in my career, where there's a certain vibe right now. There's a certain buzz, a certain electricity. Are you feeling that along with the rest of the locker room right now, that you guys might be on the verge of something real special here with this company?
Yeah, it's just looking at, how we started, many, many, many years ago, depending on how far
Many
you want
moons
to go
ago,
back.
right? That was the old
Yes,
line.
depending on how far you want to go back, just to where we are now, it's incredible. And the big thing for us was getting indoors. That was the big thing because not to have to battle the weather, the elements, the heat, some of
Sure.
those things, it was just miserable. Some shows. But just to be indoors and in a climate control environment inside, the ring sounds better indoors. Plus, you get the lights, the smoke, the commentary, and then just the live presence of the audience that are fans that are there, fans and family that want to see these guys perform and put everything they have on the line. And I'm very fortunate to have the roster. And the members that I do, whether they're a permanent member of the roster or a part-time, they're just tremendous. To travel hours in some cases, in most cases, hours and hours and hours to come to a
Listen, you
DBW
have
show.
Matt Moore and Scorpion. They're from New York. In fact, Matt Moore is from Yonkers, which is it's not that far from me. So I could imagine that travel to Hagerstown. I mean,
Brandon Castelli's from Rhode Island.
I saw that.
And then the guys from down south in North Carolina, South Carolina, and all those things, it's incredible to travel that far to be with friends and we call ourselves family, and to wrestle in a 10 to 20 minute match and just to put that much time and effort into it. It's incredible. This is a very unique hobby passion that we have and that we do, and I'm very fortunate to be around the guys that we have.
And we're very fortunate to have Mr. Judgment here, as well as a long list of DBW shows ahead. But let me get to some more comments because people want to talk to you, and I feel bad that I don't get a chance to read off comments.
Let's do it.
Bad Sons versus the New Brotherhood was probably my favorite Bad Sons match of all time. He gives 100.
That's amazing.
Thank you
Amazing.
about that on Tyler. Brandon would like to say Dawn's March versus Prophets of the Netherworld was also a great match. So
Indeed, it was. It was just 1,000,000 degrees when we wrestled that match.
Well, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Chase would like to say, I'll say this out of character. Mr. Judgment does bring the best out of me, even if it's with him or against him.
You know, I've been, out of character. I've been best friends with this guy for a long time.
I noticed. I've seen stuff out there with him from like 10 years ago, and he was like a whippersnapper.
Yeah, a long, long time. And, he's phenomenal. You look at him and he's not a big guy at all. But the innovative things he does in the ring and his character that he brings, it's really awesome.
And this guy, listen, he's traveled. He's wrestled in New York. He's wrestled in West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
I mean, another guy, North Carolina, obviously. Another guy that's working his way up the ranks. And
we have traveled a lot together, him and I. So.
Oh, I'm sure of that. I'm sure that that's going to continue. Maybe one day, who knows, right? But obviously, he's out of DBW for now, so we'll have to see what the future brings. This individual might be related to an individual named Mr. Havoc. Certainly, yeah. Well, yeah. I
don't drink beer, but this is God's version of beer.
Well, if you want to laugh, because I know you've done a podcast before. You might add as entertaining as this one. I'm drinking Coke out of a Burger King cup.
I'm drinking vodka.
I don't drink personally, period, because if I drink, my whole neighborhood will know, and I'm really irreverent, so I really could not afford to do that. I do want to say hello to Mr. James Taylor, the Nemesis James Taylor, who's got 41,000 subscribers on YouTube. He is, of course, a legendary wrestler in his own right for Tennessee Backyard Wrestling. He also has his own show called The Nemesis Sessions with James Taylor, and James Taylor, you should certainly try to book Mr. Judgment, because Mr. Judgment is another guy that's also a 23-year veteran. And I will bring up Mr. Craven in a second, but one more thing from Brandon. When I used to live in Rhode Island, it would be like 8-hour trips to get to the old venue. Wow, I did not know that. That's obviously,
massive.
Thank you, Brandon, for telling us. And Mr. Craven, who we call our coach on Sportswire, says he would like to join the DBW roster. Now, you have a big roster, and what would your thoughts be on Mr. Craven, who, by the way, is longtime friends with Mr. Havoc? So what's your opinions on that, which we kind of established a little while ago anyway, but what do you think on that, sir?
Now, all you got to do is hit me up, send me a message, and then I'll have the conversation.
Fair enough. Duly noted. He says it's part of the grind. Also here, Brandon would like to say, I certainly don't mind. I don't care how far it is. It's about doing my thing. I want to say hello to CJ Black. What is this out of character lingo? You guys play a character. Well, he's basically he's when he comes on, he's always in character, but he doesn't know that you're also the promoter of Dominant Breakout Wrestling, which is a massive company right now in the Mid-Atlantic.
I have dual responsibilities. So.
And it's a massive following. We're talking like almost 3,500 subscribers on YouTube. They've made
rapidly growing.
Right, and they've made it a major transition where they're basically, to me, like a pro wrestling company. Just that's the point. And I think Mr. Craven even said, really, CJ. And our ROEW champion, the wild card Jason Storm, who, by the way, just celebrated a birthday, is also moving. In fact, he's moving as we speak, and he's actually tuned into Sportswire. I mean, God bless this guy. This guy has got real tenacity. He was on the show Monday. He was sick. It was his birthday the next day. And Thursday, today, he's getting ready to move out of his house, and he's still tuned in on Sportswire.
Well, Jason Storm, may I say from the prophet, happy day of your birth, mortal.
Duly noted here. Okay, so let's come back to that. Now, obviously, I want to talk about something where I just alluded upon the fact that you're a 23-year veteran. You started basically wrestling on futons to where this company is like, I mean, we're like, a word that one of my former employers used to say, who was a New York State senator, would say, this close. We're right there. You're right there to where I feel like you guys are going to go on that path to a lot of these independent wrestling companies. On a personal level, from where the company started to where you started. Answer it any way you want, sir. How does it make you feel to be where you are today?
You know, there's a lot that goes on in life and through
Sure.
time. And I have to say that wrestling has been extremely important to my life. And
Sure.
getting me through some of the hardest times that I've ever been through, and some great times. It is just it's always been a passion. It's always been there. And just to think back of where it was back on those futon mattresses when we called ourselves dominating wrestling federation, and it was just
Yeah,
me and
I wasn't gonna bring up
yeah,
some of the names because I
yeah,
feel like we've evolved so much that like I
yeah.
really want to sell what the moment is for this company.
Yeah, it's it's been incredible, and it's from starting then with just local kids in the neighborhood and my brothers and relatives to growing and meeting more people, and then getting on social media, and then you're able to branch out to many people. I have to, even though it kills me to give this guy credit,
Uh-oh.
oh,
Uh-oh.
but his name is I think he goes by Victor Van Pelt is his wrestling.
I've heard you had history with him. I've seen some of the
Yes.
clips in the
Oh,
past.
do we
Sure.
have history?
I
But
saw it. I saw
it
it.
was through him that I met a lot of these guys. So I do have to thank him for that. And who knows if we'll see each other again. But he's doing a lot of things with a lot of other companies and everything. And he does wrestle in Pennsylvania and New York. But through him, I met a lot of these guys, and then just from, like I said, the advent of social media and just being able to network through other companies. And, it's you're surprised how big backyard and underground wrestling is until you really start to branch out, and it's huge.
Oh,
And,
it's
and
funny you said that because I cover a lot of wrestling, right? And I always am trying to say all wrestling these days. And I've covered a lot of independent wrestling in England. That's how I know some guys that tuned in. And I got to tell you the truth, and you can take this any way you want. I really think that the underground wrestling scene, the backyard wrestling scene, the YouTube, whatever you want to call it at this point, Mickey Mouse for all I care, I actually think in some ways it's bigger than what I've covered in the independents because you guys really know your audience. You know how your engagements are. You go out there and promote yourself where, these guys, these promoters and these other places, and again, I don't want to badmouth people. I don't want to, single out names. They intellectually own the content. They own basically what these guys and gals do in the ring, and it's their thing. But on the other hand, that's why their followings are what they are. But you guys, I mean, I know you guys have kind of moved away from all that stuff, and you're basically, to me, I think going to go probably an independent at some point, or you kind of
mhm,
have that feel anyway. But
that's our goal.
I really,
Yep.
and I think you're just, like I said, this close right there. But I really think that like these other subgroups of wrestling I just mentioned, I actually think the universe and the audience are bigger than what I see and what I've covered throughout in independence.
Well, they are, and it's whether you want to call it underground wrestling, backyard wrestling, YouTube wrestling, it's just I think a lot of these independent companies are very old school, and they don't branch out as
They even
heavily.
I've covered companies that the champions don't even do
Yeah,
interviews. They don't
yeah,
even cut
they
promos.
don't do promos. Like if you don't see them live, you have no idea what happens. And the live show is, and especially because we're experiencing it now in DBW, it is the most
I've
important thing.
noticed.
But I think that's a big difference is, you take that combination of how, we are so widespread on social media as backyard and underground feds versus the independent scene. Plus, not going to say that there's no egos in backyard and underground wrestling, because there are, but there's a less amount of ego
Oh, listen.
than the independent
Listen,
scene.
1,000%. I mean, I know that there's drama out there. We've even seen it firsthand live on the show, and I
Sure.
don't want to go down that road anymore. But in the independents, it's like, I mean, I'm involved. I cover a lot of the independents in England, and it's like right now, it's like it with this it's tribal warfare is what I call it.
Yeah,
Tribal warfare.
yeah, and and I think that happens a lot of time too when there's money involved. Whenever
Yep.
wrestlers are getting paid, because DBW we don't pay anybody, because we do this for the love of the business
Absolutely.
of what we
100%.
do.
Listen.
And but I do have to say this, because I wrestle for a couple independent feds, and I'm very fortunate to wrestle for them because they are excellent environments. I'm actually the Amplify Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion.
I'm not
Well,
surprised. You probably have 17 world titles for all I know. You're Mr. Judgment after
so
all.
no, but it was I'm honored to be a part of that company and be their champion as well in my inaugural debut. for them. And we have a big event coming up here at the end of August where I defend that title for the first time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But no, it's been good. Even the indie feds that are around here, and there's quite a few. They're pretty humble. And they're great promoters. So it's been good, but I've also experienced the other side of it as well in the past.
Like I said, I see it. I'm on Facebook, and I'm like I do a lot of coverage with these indie companies. I don't want to say the names out there, but the tribal warfare, the clicks. I just, I just think that despite their stuff in the backyard, the YouTube, the underground, it still is a tenth of what I've seen just covering these other companies. But I want to get to more comments here because I have a couple of good questions for you.
Yeah.
CJ would like to say, and I want to give CJ some slack actually because CJ does a great job out there with his company, ROEW Backyard Wrestling, on YouTube and Instagram. This guy really puts his heart into the company. He really puts a lot of time in there, and he's another guy that's going places despite what he may say on the screen. But he says, gonna make Craven poop. Basically, that was kind of his thing. Trying to get a reaction out of Craven. That's fine.
That's good stuff.
ROEW then was like, this guy has a good head on his shoulders, is very well spoken. WC, well, there's a company in Wisconsin called Wrestling Championship Entertainment that a lot of these yarders, I'm sure you heard through the grapevine that they feel that they have not really been up to standard here. But let me get to VTW because I don't want to spend time on these other companies because I have you and you're a big deal. VTW only has about 10 or so core guys, and you obviously have a bigger roster. Is it easier or harder to book with more people?
Oh, it's extremely difficult to book with the size of the roster that we have. Now, that's part of the reason why we're bringing back the Anarchy Championship. Why we took it away initially is because our roster wasn't as big as it is now. It's still a decent size, but it's with the roster size that we have, we still only have 5 or 6 championships versus 32 to 40 guys at any given time. So it's still a very small percentage of our total roster holds a title, and that's the way it should be. You shouldn't have 1 million titles in a company. But
then there's nothing to strive for. It's like anything else.
So we have a corporate team in DBW of a total of 4 guys who we sit down on. We do our own conference calls and we go through. Okay, what's the storyline planning? What's the event planning? It takes hours to go through.
I can imagine the time that you put into it is like
and I'm not saying it doesn't take a long time for 10 guys either, because you have to figure out, because you don't want to duplicate matches over and over and over again. You don't want to have the same guys facing the same people over and over again, so that's difficult as well. But it's challenging either way. But it's with a big show like we're having up here, which is our biggest show of the year for World War. I don't know if all my roster members are going to be able to wrestle, which is also why we have the Thunder Punch content.
Yeah,
so they still get that exposure.
And Roland speaks to me all the time about Thunder Punch. That's why I'm always thankful he tags me on Facebook so I can watch these shows. But I think it gives rosters an opportunity because you're adding that extra show. And I had Fletch on from XCW Shelbyville on Tuesday, and I think it's similar with you guys because you have that big roster. So adding another show kind of gives guys that exposure to kind of work on those feuds and kind of maybe build more reps, build more experience. Because again, you guys have made the transition where you guys were in the yard a couple years back to where now you guys are working in a venue. So I think that making that transition also helps a lot of guys in getting those reps in, because if guys are transitioning from, let's say, pure yarders to where they're like, like I think Fletch used the word amateur pros, almost like amateur pro. That makes sense.
Yeah,
he kind of basically saw it like that way. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that comment, because he's kind of got the same kind of experience as you, about the same years, same experience in the ring. And, does that also help in that by adding these shows gives guys more exposure, more reps in the ring?
Yeah, it certainly does. And it gives them, a lot of the newer talent that we have, they have a more heavier presence on Thunder Punch episodes. So that way it can help them build their character, build up a storyline, build up just experience in the ring through these smaller scale matches than compared to the big show. Plus, having these smaller shows tremendously helps build up our bigger shows, instead of just having a big show and a big show and a big show and a big show like we've done in the past. Bringing back these Thunder Punch, it's a lot of work with a lot of editing and everything like that. But it is so worth it to see the progression from you have a big show, then you have small shows to help build and build and build, and it just climbs up until the precipice of your major event. So it's really
I'll tell you what I liked and I watch a lot of wrestling. I watch a lot of different companies, and at this point, I was joking with you off the. I'm not going to say I'm Dave Meltzer, but I probably watch about as much wrestling as Dave Meltzer does. What I liked about the Thunder Punch shows was that it kind of builds toward the next show. So almost you've got like, think of it like your SmackDown, your Raw before pay-per-view, almost like your Dynamite, your Collision before an AEW show. So having those Thunder Punch shows, I think really adds something this year to the show, to the company shows. And I kind of think that that's good for guys, especially as you made the transition from being outside to inside. Do you feel also the same way that transitioning with Thunder Punch has kind of like been your Raw and SmackDowns to go into a pay-per-view and helps with continuity in writing these storylines and these feuds?
Yeah, 110%. That's exactly what we intended them to be. Smaller scale shows get more exposure for all the roster members, and then to build up the stories, the big stories. So you're not just having guys face in a major event that are just facing. What's the reason why that they're competing in the ring? Like, what's the backstory? You're able to tell these things through not just matches, but promos, backstage segments. You know, we have our Simon Bartholomew character.
I've heard of him. I saw him.
I also play.
I wasn't going to say that, though. I was going to try to have the fourth wall out there. I mean,
no, broken down. So I'm very busy at our shows.
You had the same wig that John Cena wears in Barbie, almost.
Yeah, it's it's good to see these promos and everything, and get the guys extra exposure. And I have to give a ton of credit to my son, who is our vice president of the company, and Brandon Castelli, who is the commissioner, and those two write the content for Thunder Punch.
You know, Brandon, I really want to give Brandon a big shout out, because Brandon, I really like him off the air, because he's really like a good dude. And I talk with him, and he asked me my opinion. And you know, like a lot of these guys that come on Sportswire, and I want to shout some of the guys are like IMF guys, and you know, the DKW guys, WC, you know, ROEW, even the CJ Black. They'll actually ask me, hey, you know, what did you think? You know, because I always tell people, I'm not going to tell you how to write your show, so that you can be assured. I'm not going to, you know, say how to, you know, who should win and lose, but they'll ask me like my opinions. Yeah. And I'm always like, because I watch all these shows. So what I really think is well thought out is how these shows, what you guys have been doing. Everything is so well thought out, which is why I really want people to follow Dominant Breakout Wrestling on YouTube. But Dominating Breakout Wrestling. That's Dominating Breakout Wrestling. I cannot stress it enough. I have a ton of more comments, so let me try to get to more people here. If you're talking about Chris Craven, CJ, you aren't ready. If you're talking about Craven Rage, just looking at him would probably make himself poop. This is a guy in another company that a lot of wrestlers on Sportswire think not much of him, because he basically runs the company differently than you would run it. But that's a different show for a different time. Also, hello from the IMF. I think the guys might say hello to you toward the end of the show in a little while. They'd like to say a few words of congratulations and maybe an introduction. Thunder Punch is such a fun time to work on. Yes, Thunder Punch. I really enjoyed the Thunder Punch.
By the way, Chase Wakefield, he's the editor of Thunder Punches. So he does, whereas, you know, Castelli and my son do the planning, he does all the editing, and he does a phenomenal job.
Now, listen, I think everybody in the company, I'm all big fans of you guys. I really, I'm big fans. And Omen Black would like to say hello, because this is his kind of the thing is it's kind of his show on Sportswire. So he says, welcome to my show, Judgment. And Omen's a big guy, too. He's 5'11", 385. So he's a big guy. But he also, by the way, gives you a compliment. He digs the filth shirt.
Indeed. It's amazing how I took one word, a one-syllable word, and just made it into an extremely popular word.
Well, I do know. Well, there was a band called Cradle of Filth. I remember.
Yeah, indeed.
Cradle of Filth shirts. I didn't quite get into them, but that's why I'm an idiot, but everybody else isn't. More content is always better. I absolutely love Thunder Punch, and I'm so glad it's returned. You know, I want to ask you actually about your music, because your music has changed over time, where now you've got like, I guess you've had different entrances, and now I keep thinking you've got like a video game entrance with that da-na-da-da-da-da. So talk to me about the inspiration of the latest entrance that you have now.
All right, so this is I use a song by the band is called the Death Stars.
I feel like I've heard of them.
Yep, and it's a song called Bodies. And it's just for the character that I'm trying to portray as Mr. Judgment right now, it's just a perfect entrance where, you know, it starts out with me saying my little spiel, calling everybody filth, and your soul is mine, blah blah blah. And then when that music hits, it's the perfect description of the character that I'm trying to proceed with. I love Ghost. Ghost is my favorite band.
You even had Ghost kind of themed when you were putting face paint earlier in the season, or even last year. I saw a lot of Ghost influences there.
Yeah, so and that was really, the fans, even though I was a tremendous heel, they loved the character. And I'm trying to break away from that a little bit, still keeping the same backstory, but the visual look of the character has been scaled back a little bit.
That. See, then that's where I saw the Disciple kind of similarity now, because you moved away from the face paint, but you've got kind of like that standing. You've got the Heretics, kind of like, to me, the Descendants. So you've got like that now. You're almost like this leader, like this higher power vibe almost.
Yes, and that's exactly what we're going for. So it's much more it's much more of a serious gimmick, especially with being the world champion and trying to set the tone for that. It's in the whole Divinity faction. It's a very serious faction from what Mr. Judgment has been in the past.
Oh, I could definitely see that here. And yeah, I forgot Omen does have filth. He says, my theme is by filth, but I hate the orange. It makes me puke. And also CJ has a funny line, all these filth bags, commenting kind of the word filth. But whatever reason, when you say Judgment Day or the Judgment Slam, I keep thinking for whatever reason you would have had, which is kind of embarrassing for me to say, but I just love the song. One of my all-time favorite songs is actually Van Halen Judgment Day, when Sammy Hagar sang it, and it had that kind of vibe for you. Da-na-na, da-na-na. And I kept thinking, wow, why don't these guys come out to Judgment Day from Van Halen? But then people will look at me like, well, why are you bringing up Sammy Hagar singing Judgment Day? But I'm like, if you actually hear the intro and then those guitar riffs and kind of the lyrics, I think it would have fitted you, but you know your character better than me. But I want to continue to talk about your character because you have such an intriguing moveset. You've done these diamond cutters. You've done these Judgment Slam double pile drivers. You've done all these different moves that are very creative. And I was kind of curious for the audience, because I know that I have guys who are really like serious wrestlers in the audience right now. Talk about your moveset and how you've got, to me, such a unique moveset for a big man.
So, it's funny because I've had some guys refer to my moveset as almost like a creator wrestler. Like half of my
I did see that. I did see that on your social media in the past.
Yeah, so half of my moveset could be a finisher for anybody else. I try to be, not only with the character, I put so much time into the character to try to separate. So not all dark gimmicks are the same. So I spent a lot of time with that, and I wanted to be equally as creative with the moveset and try to create these moves. And, that Judgment Slam is just, in my opinion, it is the perfect move. I can set it up. I can hit it with a counter. It's just, and it's because I get a jump to it. So you're dropping almost 7 feet. So
I noticed that. Yeah,
it's a huge, impactful move. It looks great in the ring. I can hit it on anybody, regardless of size. But
you're pretty big, though, to begin with. I mean, let's be honest. You're a big guy. I mean, you should be able to hit it.
Yes, but that, and then it's the Jesus Christ, which is that.
I like when you say that, by the way, because I'm thinking, well, I'm a reverend. I feel he's thinking of me, maybe.
Absolutely. So that going from a razor's edge and flipping him over into the knee, that's very impactful. It's very flashy. I have the Hand of God, which is such a basic move. I set up like a choke slam, and then I fall with him like a rock bottom. And it's a huge, impactful move. So simple to do. And, with wrestling nowadays, how creative wrestling is, it's very hard to come up with original moves because so many moves are being done. So I'm fortunate to have a select move set, and I have more that I haven't used in a while, and I have some new ones coming. So it's,
don't tell us, because the whole locker room is going to know.
You'll see on East Christian. You'll see. But I try to be as original as I can be when I step through that curtain, with the character to the move set to everything that I can do to try to be original and try to stand out.
All right. I have a bunch of comments here, and I want to give people the opportunity. And CJ says God-given talent. Well, yeah, because look at
I appreciate that.
260 pounds. And Omen and CJ go back and forth. And then D-Lock, I definitely know how that move feels.
So this guy right here,
Yep,
D-Lock.
I've heard the name come up. Yep.
So he is the VTW World Champion.
Yep, I definitely know the name very well. Yep, that's why
there is no better holder of that championship than D-Lock. I mean, that guy went through hell to get that title, and he had to go through me included. And it was just a tremendous blast to be in the ring with that guy. Some of the hardest chops I've ever felt in my life. But phenomenal match. Had a blast in that match, and I've had a blast in VTW. But much props to the VTW World Champion.
No question about that. And I want people to follow VTW out there. VTW Wrestling on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Check them out. Beach Blast just took place, and they've got a ton of shows coming up. And we have Versus the World Wrestling coverage because, well, guys in DBW work for VTW. So I'm going to probably talk about it on Tuesday's show with Brandon.
Close-knit community. It's amazing to share this talent.
You know, I actually want to ask you about that for a second because I asked Chase that question, and I'll get to guys because I actually want to ask you something that maybe would help some of the guys in a second because you have such amount of experience. But I really think that one of the positives that I see about DBW is that you do work hand in hand with a company like this. I'm going to tell you why it's important because I do a lot of stuff in overseas with these little towns and there's a lot of crossover. And I think that's good because what happens is if you're building a feud or if you're building out who you might want to put in there with somebody, you can kind of have that continuity. And I think it bodes well because of the cross promotion. Guys see each other, other companies. You know, talk to me about your thoughts on that because you obviously wear two different roles, but that's how I see it from what I've covered in these different places. Do you see the same thing, let's say, in DBW and VTW?
So, you know, it's what I do want to say about all the companies that we, partner with as far as talent goes. They are completely different universes. So it's a very, very rarely do we ever cross storylines between shows. They're independent stories, even though the talent may be shared. So
right.
Completely different.
But you can still test somebody what they do in the ring to see if they would work in your company.
100%.
That was kind of my point.
100%. And I have said it. I have met some of the greatest people through doing this passion that we do of wrestling. I just without it, I don't know what I would do. They are just some of the nicest friends and the nicest people I've ever met. The guys down south, the guys up north, the guys in Baltimore. And outside of Philly, they're just everybody's tremendous, and it's just we are like family. I mean, that's just we are friends. We love this. We all have the passion for this, but I feel fortunate to call them family.
Well, that's a really cool thing, and very few people can say that. I've got some more comments, and I don't know if you'll react the same way, but I will get to those comments because that's what we're here for. I want to see Judgment hit Mal Havoc with the Judgment Slam. Well,
Mal Havoc,
yes,
is probably easy 400.
Well, that's why I knew that because Omen Black's 385, and he wants the slam hit on him.
So I could do it. Don't get me wrong.
He's saying doubtful, by the way. He's saying doubtful.
I could do it. Might need a little assistance, but I could do it.
Also, CJ wants me to plug his Instagram. Very simple. I will do that for you. Gods_true_son. Gods_true_son. So he'll message you off the air, which I will make sure that I'll do one more time. Gods_true_son. And Omen likes to say he looks like my 8th grade English teacher that flunked me. I want to punch him in the face. Well, you might get a chance to test that in about 20 minutes.
Bring it on. You feel
they're going to come on, but I want to ask you a few more things. And, going back to the band thing, and I don't know how much I can say at liberty at this, but I heard from a birdie that, and I saw on some of your history that you also play an instrument apparently in this band. And you might want to share this kind of a duality life that you share, sir.
I'm a busy guy. So
I see that. I'm surprised you even spoke with me tonight, and I thought I was busy in life.
On top of running a promotion, wrestling for multiple companies, including my own, performing, having the honor of performing in my band, plus being a full-time retail store manager. Plus having a huge family. So it's just I try to sneak sleep in when I can. But it's just it's going to be awesome with the band to be the bass player again and to be able to perform at at World War. It's going to be amazing at the halftime performance, and we'll have that on YouTube as well, on our channel and on the Two Sides to Die YouTube channel. But it's going to be great. We're going to rock that place. It's original alternative rock, all original stuff. We're trying to think about splashing in some covers, but it's going to be great. We're going to rock that place. So you get great music, live performance, you get great wrestling. Oh, and it's all free. So.
Were you always wanting to play an instrument at the same time wrestling? Because I think it's interesting, because there are some guys that have kind of done it. Famously Hulk Hogan, before he was a wrestler, was a bassist, and there is some crossover at times in music and obviously wrestling. I know it's hard to juggle both, but was that always an influence of yours, or an interest maybe, to do music and wrestling at the same time?
So wrestling definitely came first. And then picking up the music and everything came after that. But sometimes it was, I did both at the same time. Sometimes I did just the music, depending on where I was at in the stage of my life. But I have a very strong passion for music, and there's just, if I had to put a similarity, playing a show in a band is very similar to.
I 1,000% agree with this, because I played a bassist. I was a bassist for a long time, and I played bass and keyboards, and I could definitely see it. That's why I put a lot of the music and wrestling in similarities. So, as from one player to another in the bass side of it, what is your instrument? What bass model do you have?
So I have a Schecter. I love Schecter.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely love Schecter. I will stick with Schecter Elixir strings. I love Schecter, the way it sounds, EMG pickups.
I think Schecter, Geddy Lee used on a couple of the early to mid 80s Rush albums. When you say Schecter, that means you're a real bass player. That's a real bass player's instrument there.
I try. But
no, you pick or without the fingers?
Both. So I mostly play with the fingers, but I do the pick as well. So
okay. All right. Well, that's pretty interesting. Interesting stuff there. All right. So we're certainly asking a few more questions here for Mr. Judgment. He's a busy man, but he's going to be plugging here our wonderful show coming up here September the 23rd, called World War. And you can follow Dominant Breakout Wrestling again on YouTube at Dominating Breakout Wrestling. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryson. I did want to ask you, and what does it mean to you to be the DBW World Champion?
So, before I just won this title against Scorpion, which props to Scorpion, it's, I will say this out of character. It's been a long time.
I know it's been a while. That's why I asked you the question, because you didn't have the title. I mean, you obviously have the longest run in the company's history, the first 3-time champion, but you didn't have the title for a while.
Yeah, I went a long time, and there was guys who really stepped up in the company, between Chase Wakefield, Adam Anderson, between Damien Fatale, the Blaze, Scorpion the Assassin, so and many others. There's just so many guys who really stepped up in the company that were just so deserving of the title, to be world champion, and all the other titles that they've held. And it's just to win this world title. It is, I like to think, and everybody's partial to this, promoters are and everything. But I like to think that we at DBW, we are the best at what we do. And even though we're probably not, but I believe that. So to be the world champion, and to be the individual that represents the company, and to be that standard bearer, which is what any world champion, any world champion is, that is the most important thing. So you don't just wrestle for titles. Don't get me wrong. You don't wrestle. You wrestle because you love the business, you love the passion. But to be rewarded with the title is just, it's amazing. I'm humbled by it. It's not just a decision that's just made by me and just saying, oh, I'm the owner, I'm the promoter, I'm going to make myself world champion.
To be fair, you didn't have the title for a while. There's some companies that come on Sportswire and they get the knock. Well, the promoter puts the title on themselves because, well, it's his company. But in this case, I mean, I watch your content, and I have to be honest with you. I don't feel that you're booking yourself to just make sure that you're the champion. I mean, I've watched your content, and I know some of the guys off the air. I don't get that sense at all, to tell you the truth. And I can call it spade a spade. I have done that, and I see a lot of wrestling. I don't feel that way at all with this company.
Yeah, and that's perfect, because that's exactly what we want. And here's the thing, and I hate saying this as Mr. Judgment, but when I get beat, when somebody beats me for the title, it's a big freaking deal. Like when
I a
Cyrus
thousand
beat
percent
me
agree
for
with
the
that.
title, when Cyrus beat me for the title that first time, it was a huge deal. I mean, huge deal. Blaze, who beat me the second time, which then I screwed him over, and he had a 30-second title reign. That was huge. I mean, the audience, the small group of audience that we had there just lost their shit. And then, so we'll see what happens now. But you beat me, it's a big deal. So it ain't gonna happen for
But
a long
I
time.
gotta be honest, and I look at the roster. You have a big roster, no question about it, right? And I've got a chance to know a lot of the roster. I've gotten a chance to watch who you have. I do think, though, right now, for the moment that the company is in, leave aside the history, leave aside where you wrestled, when you wrestled. The moment right now for the company to continue to grow, I think based on ring ability, look, if I was the promoter, if Tom Bryce was the promoter, I would actually put the title on you. And the reason I would say that is because right now the company's going into a moment that I think it's going to probably even exceed where we are now. So you got to have a champion that can sell that opportunity. And no disrespect to anybody on the roster that you have now. You have a really talented roster. And many of the guys I've gotten to know because they've come on the show and they message me. I think you're the guy to kind of sell the product kind of in a way similar to what, not obviously two totally different characters, but how Austin did in the Attitude Era. Austin was the one that sold the WWF to become public. He was the one that put it into all those venues. I think right now for this company to where you've gone from being a legit company and where you'll probably even exceed where we are now, I think you're the guy looking at the roster that I've seen. You can take it whatever way you want because it's your company. You may be uncomfortable with that, but I know wrestling and I know talent when I see it. I think that you're the guy to lead the company to where it's going to even further go. That's my opinion.
I appreciate that tremendously. And, it's, I'm humbled by, any gratitude ever given to me. And, I'm very fortunate to still be, as Chase Wakefield likes to say, as old as I am, these old guys.
Well, like I said, I was going to plead the fifth on that because I realized you're 6'3", 260, and I'm, not going to pick a fight there with you, sir.
I'm very fortunate to still be doing this at a pretty decent level after all these years and still going strong at it. And, it's for all the guys that are not only champions of DBW because they're all tremendous, but the entire roster. We have such a diverse roster right now of talent levels, of skill levels, of ability. It's so diverse right now, which helps in booking. Because you're able to really mix things up and give fresh perspective and fresh new matches. And so that's a good thing about having a big roster is you're able to do so many creative things. With
I think to have the roster that you have, and then you be able to kind of have these different feuds, different things go on. You can kind of test what works, what doesn't work. I think that's a really cool thing. And I wanted to ask you because I have a lot of wrestlers that I know will watch this after it's off the air. People will message me. You've obviously been in the game a long time, and you've had, relatively speaking, a lot of success because you've pretty much done a number of different things, and you are pretty much, to me, a pro wrestler. I mean, let's be honest. You've done a lot of different things. I watch you in the ring. To me, you look like a pro wrestler. I see how you move. I see how you kind of take bumps. I see how you do the finishing moves. That's, to me, you're not – I don't see you as, an unseasoned guy that's can't even throw a punch. Do you have advice for a lot of these up-and-comers who are starting to travel, who are starting to put their names out there and want to go to different places? Do you have advice for them?
I do. And here's what I would tell you. There is, you can go to a school, you can do trainings and get the in-ring technical ability, which of course is extremely important.
Sure.
But really put a lot of thought behind your character. So, and a lot of that is missing from wrestling nowadays. There's not too many characters out there. When you think about even to the highest levels, like who are the characters anymore? Everybody's just a name. And
I heard Eric Bischoff say that on his podcast, that basically, sure, the bloodline are great, but are people going to remember this 30 years from now? I mean, Cody and the story, it's great, but they're almost interchangeable. Almost. Hulk Hogan had a line, and he said basically that what they do is they basically take wrestlers. It's almost like a factory line. They bring them in. They look the same. They move the same. They're told to go a certain way, but there's no originality, basically, what he was trying to say.
Correct. And it's the character development portion is, in my opinion, the most important thing. You want to stick out, have a character. Be something special, be something different. And the moment you step through that character, everything changes. So I'm completely different behind the scenes and in everyday life than I am when I turn into Mr. Judgment.
Well, I mean, look, I've watched the shows, and I do see you kind of in the background. I see you sitting there on the table, and I wasn't going to say anything about it, but I obviously could see it. You've done these different segments. I have a few more comments here.
Sure.
Randy would like to say chronic ? Ego. I don't. Do they? I guess chronic ego. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's interesting. Interesting. I guess he's trying to compare them both. Maybe
two very good factions. Very good factions.
No question. It's a PG show, Mr. Judgment. No, Mr. Judgment's been fine. Listen, I don't think he's had any issues. Maybe on DBW TV, you can certainly get away with that. When you want the views to skyrocket, well, I have a feeling we're going to come to that point shortly. But, you've had a lot of moments in your career, and I know I could probably do a laundry list worth of them, but I always ask this question to people that come on the show, and obviously you're no different because you have a tremendous background, a lot of stature, but is there one or two moments that stand out in your career most?
In my total career, yes.
Sure.
So there was a special moment as I was coming up in through the independent scene. This was in the early 2000s, where I was wrestling for a local independent promotion, where I actually got to wrestle in a match with Nikolai Volkov.
Oh, well, I heard his name today on Bruce Pritchard's show. Yes, wow, what a small world.
That was tremendous honor. I mean,
he lived in the Maryland area, wasn't he? A meter reader or something like that?
Yeah, he lived pretty local, so he was pretty active around here at the time, and he was, at the time I wrestled him, he was in his mid-50s, so I mean, older guy, but still built huge. I mean, he's a horse.
He was big. Listen, way back then, even.
Huge, but it was such an honor to be in the ring with him back then, and then just to start my independent training and have like Luke Gallows, before he became Luke Gallows.
Right, wasn't he from Baltimore, Mid-Atlantic?
Yeah,
wasn't he
and we trained in Hagerstown, Maryland, at House of Pain Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
And just to be in that same training class with him and knowing what he's done in his career, it makes me sometimes wish, if I would have been more serious about it and had different life events, where could I have been?
But I wouldn't have you on Sportswire, and I wouldn't be able to talk DBW though. So I mean,
maybe you would. But no, that was a special moment, and then. I think, there's just so many that the match with Novin was special. The match with Cyrus, that was the longest match in my career. The Heaven's Gate match that we had, it was basically a reverse ladder match. But there's been so many special moments, Best in the Yard shows that we do down south, where it's just a conglomerate of different wrestlers from different feds coming together for one special show. And then just, I truly value every single event, whether it's with DBW or another company, that I get to see my friends. It's just, to me, it's a special moment every time.
Yeah, I really think there's something special about this company. There's electricity. There's just something you can't almost explain it, but I just think this company is just going to go even bigger places. And you see the transformation, just so amazing, obviously in your own career, but in the companies in a short amount of time. And I think it's only going to go, and the best is yet to come, is what my point was. But I had to ask you something that was kind of funny, because I always reference all the time. I have a background in politics, which I kind of always reference it in different ways. And you actually have a character that was sort of based off that. And it was, I think, the Prophets of Politics, or I forget exact the title of it was. Yeah. But you have to talk about this, because I find this very fascinating, because that's actually something that I cut my teeth in since I'm basically out of high school, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I had to ask this just for a personal satisfaction and what you learned from that character, and just where did it all come about, because I'm fascinated.
So it was called The Prophet of Politics. I did a couple I did a couple live streams on Facebook. And the issue I would love to do it now. God, there's so much stuff to talk about right now.
Oh my God. I don't even want to bring it up. I mean, you know what the crazy thing is on my shows? My state assemblyman actually calls me about my shows, and I'm like, oh my God, what does he want from me? I'm like, at this point, it's like, I don't even want to talk about
Yeah,
politics.
it's just craziness. My issue with doing, I would love to do it again. It's just finding the time between
Oh, I
everything
would
else.
imagine promoter,
But I had a
family,
blast.
wrestling.
I had a blast doing it. And just talking about what my views were on everything. My goal was to share my views, have guests, special guests on, and just talk about current events, everything politically. And I'd love to get back into it again, but it's just the time issue.
Maybe you're better off though. Maybe you're better off because you know what? You're gonna anger somebody one way or another. And
Listen, my character pokes fun at religion. I always anger somebody.
I understand that, but it's different when you actually talk about the current events because that's
Yeah.
something. It's a world that I'm actually very familiar in because I've worked for state senators, assembly members here in New York, and I've been in that world, and it's really like
People
a
are
world
so
that
sensitive.
you don't even you don't even want any part of it, but it's it's helped
horrible.
afford me the flexibility to do Sportswire. But as we're coming up to our closing thoughts here, I wanted to give you the opportunity to say anything maybe to anybody that has supported DBW and to anybody who's hearing DBW for the first time as to why they should support Dominant Breakout Wrestling.
So first of all, I want to say, thank you to everyone who has subscribed to our channel and checked us out on Facebook and all social media. It's an honor to have you as part of what we call the DBW universe, and been able to follow us for such a long time and continue to follow us. As you kind of prefaced and as we're kind of looking at things and, continuing to raise the bar and take the next level, is we are, getting bigger and better. And we're trying to continue to grow. We don't want to stop. I want to thank, I guess I could start as early as my brothers and my brother-in-laws, my family for, just messing around in the backyard. That's what started all this. And neighborhood guys and that I went to school with, and then, meeting everybody through social media, Victor Van Pelt, and through all the guys that he introduced me to, meeting the guys down south, Aaron Jones, Tyler Aiken, Zach Daniels, who's pretty much one of my children. It's Brandon Castelli, who's been a second son. All these guys, they're just absolutely tremendous. So I thank everybody. And I hope that, we always take feedback. I always take feedback on the product, whether it's positive or constructive. It doesn't matter to me. It only helps us get better. And, we want to reach more people and show us our product. And the whole goal right now is to have DBW be either, show the best of what you got and be solidified here, or help you take the next step if you want to go professionally and take that next leap. Eventually we're going to get to the point where we are that next leap. It's just been great to see the guys, to meet the guys, to become friends and extended family with all these people, so many people. It's just, I thank everybody for sticking with it.
Absolutely. And Brandon would like to say you have had a fantastic career. The sky is still the limit. Also Grand Slam champion. Also, yet you were a World Extreme champion as well in DBW as well.
I was the worst World Extreme champion. Let's not get that squared away.
You're Mr. Judgment. I'm not going to say you're the worst. You're Mr. Judgment.
I was terrible. Oh my God. I held that belt for a second. That was terrible.
I don't won the title though. Listen,
I did. And I was very thankful to win it, but I don't need weapons.
No, I think your hands are your weapons and your moveset here.
Best punches in the game.
You move really well in the ring. You definitely show all that. Do you have any final words for, let's say, Mr. Christian before the 23rd? Because I'm going to get him here on the 5th of September. So I want to give you the opportunity to directly address him. If he wants to now turn back, he's able to do it. And I'll ask him that again one more time on the 5th of September.
Yeah, so somewhat back in character here. Ace Christian. Again, I will say the worst thing that you have done in your 17 years of life is win that gauntlet match. You should not have done that. And I'm going to put you down. You've heard the expression, I have brought you into this world and I can take you out. That will come to fruition at World War. Whether it was the new DBW World Championship, which is the top prize in all of DBW, or if it was the original DBW World Championship of our original making, it doesn't matter. I am the champion. I am the final boss of DBW. I am the prophet of purgatory. I am the collector of souls. That's what I got to say. Ace Christian, main event, World War, DBW World Championship on the line. Your soul will be mine.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, coming up September the 23rd, Dominant Breakout Wrestling's World War is going to be a war for the ages. And Ace Christian, you're going to be here in a few weeks. You're going to have the opportunity either A, to change your mind, or B, to respond and some, because Mr. Judgment and Divinity are stronger than ever. After what they did to close out the show of Double Cross, I would not want any part of these guys. If it was me, I would certainly want to just head back, forfeit, just maybe never show up in DBW again, because looking at this man, 6'3", 260 pounds. He arguably has maybe the best moveset of any big man. They don't call him the final boss for nothing. They don't call him the prophet of purgatory for nothing. They don't call him God's true son for nothing. And certainly, most importantly, they call him the reigning, defending, Dominant Breakout Wrestling world champion, and he's going to be champion for as long as he wants it. Oh, by the way, he was the longest running DBW champion in history, and that's why you need to follow Dominant Breakout Wrestling. Again, one more time, I cannot stress this enough, on YouTube at Dominating Breakout Wrestling. That is Dominating Breakout Wrestling. Go out there. Double Cross just came out a couple days ago. It is still the show everybody's talking about right now, not just in Backyard, YouTube, Underground, Mickey Mouse, Pro, Indie. I don't even know what other amateur pro is. XCW, Shelbyville's Fletch said, just go out and watch this show. I promise you, you are going to be entertained. And again, September 23rd, we're also going to see live music. We're going to see Two Sides to Die. You can check them out on Facebook as well. You can have a live crowd. It's probably going to be the biggest crowd in history. And the crowds in DBW, let me tell you something. I watch a lot of wrestling. The crowds in DBW are really starting to get into it. They're really starting to grow. And I know people on this show are going to be there. I know Mr. Craven said he's going to be there September the 23rd. And Hagerstown, Maryland is going to be the place to be, because that's going to be almost, in a way, it's going to be the end of the summer, but it's going to be the kickoff of what things to come, where DBW is going to blast off into the next generation. It's going to be, I think, the biggest show in the company's history. There's an old adage in life, the best is yet to come, and Dominant Breakout Wrestling has the best that's yet to come here. And before I get to a couple more things that Chase would like to say, he was the worst DBW World Extreme Champion, but I guess we'll never know. We'll never know if he was the worst or not. Obviously, Mr. Havoc is that champion, and we'll have to see if that's going to continue here. But before I get to closing thoughts here, I want to ask you, I guess, one more question.
Sure.
In what are your goals for the rest of the year? I always ask people, what are your goals for the rest of the year? So we are just about the end of the show. What's your goals for the rest of 2023?
So my goal as Mr. Judgment is to continue to solidify my reign, my dominance, and to prove time and time again why I am the final boss of DBW, the prophet of purgatory, the consumer of souls. To put divinity at the top of the mountain with myself and the heretics combined, to prove that we are the most unstoppable faction, not just in DBW, but anywhere. We are the faction of factions. That's how that's going to go. Those are my goals for the remainder of this year. As far as a promoter, my goals are just to continue to grow DBW, continue to build on show after show, continue to tell great stories, bring in some talent, solidify the talent that we have, and continue to grow our brand.
Oh, I have no doubt that you're going to do that. And speaking of factions, speaking of people that might help you grow, they want to say something very quick before we get out of here tonight.
Sure.
We are speaking about the foundation from the IMF.
Put it to the bottom.
Oh, sorry. How about now? You like that now?
Mr. Judgment. So, you want to talk about shows, bringing all the federations together? Well, we have something similar like that in July. It's called Summer Bash. Have you heard of Summer Bash?
I have. I've actually already been reached out.
Have you?
I have.
Well, a lot of federations are coming, and, we could definitely make room for DBW.
Sounds good. Send me the info, and we will be there.
The main event match, I know someone in DBW would like to represent DBW, but the main event of day 2 was Ultimate X, and day 3 is a War Games match. So if DBW wants to be represented in these matches, DBW has the invitation.
Sounds good. We will accept your invitation.
Did I just hear correct, Mr. Judgment,
July
that
5th,
DBW is
6th,
accepted?
and 7th.
Yeah, we accept.
Oh, wow. That was pretty short, sweet, and to the point. So July 5th to July 7th of next year, we're going to see Dominant Breakout Wrestling live at Summer Bash presented by the IMF and DKW.
I got one more thing, too. You know, the greatest tag team in the backyard, or the greatest tag team in all wrestling right now is the Foundation. Now, I know you have some tag teams in DBW, but this invitation goes out to any backyard company out there, any tag team that want to test their mettle to the Foundation. We'll be sure to break your mettle, shove it up your ass, and send you back home wherever you came from. Just saying.
I will say this about the tag team division of DBW. It is the most robust tag team division of any company I have ever seen. We are the largest tag team division of any company I have ever seen. We have the greatest talent in our tag team division. So if you or anybody else wants to be tested, come to DBW. You will be tested with our tag team division. It is the best I've seen in almost 25 years.
Now, is that an invitation?
That is an invitation.
You know what? We like warm-up matches. Hell, we'll take you up on it.
Oh, it's going to be more than a warm-up, gentlemen.
We'll see about that.
Indeed.
Well, I guess we'll have to find out, but it is confirmed that from July 5th to July 7th, we'll have Summer Bash, which is presented by the IMF and DKW. You can follow them for more details on YouTube at IMF Wrestling 666, Dark Cryptic Wrestling on YouTube, and Dominant Breakout Wrestling is also on YouTube as well. Dominating Breakout Wrestling. We have a number of other companies that are going to be there as well. I believe WCE, ROEW. I'm sure many other companies out there are going to be there. Maybe XCW as well. And Mr. Craven would like to say, test me. And he's going to be there also at Summer Bash. So we'll have to find out. But
I do want to say this.
Sure, go ahead.
It is a multi-day thing. Day 1's main event will be a Royal Rumble style match. Day 2, like I said, the Ultimate X match. And then day 3 will be War Games. Now, the main events from day 1 and day 2, the winner of those get a title shot of any champion that's at Summer Bash. So if anyone in the backyard team or independent team want to show up to Summer Bash and get a title shot, Bremen, Ohio is the place to do it in July.
Well, Ohio's not far from DBW anyway, so this almost might
Not
be like
far
a
at all.
home. It almost might be like a home yard advantage, home ring advantage for you guys because they're probably the one company that's basically right by them, whereas everybody else is traveling from different places. Yes, sir. You want to speak? It's your show.
Home field advantage.
Yes.
Didn't we destroy in Ohio? I think you got it all wrong, Tom. We have a home field advantage. DKW has the home field advantage. Just don't get it mistaken, Tom.
We're going to find out, though, because Mr. Judgment, if he's coming, he's the final boss. This could be a dream scenario here. The Foundation, Divinity. I mean,
Home field
who
advantage means
You may be the
nothing to
host of
me.
the show, but it's my show.
I know of, but there's a lot of people that might want to see. Maybe they want to see Mr. Judgment try the Judgment Slam on Omen Black. He says he can do it. What do you say about that, Omen?
Like I said, doubtful.
Doubtful.
We'll see.
Well,
Like I said earlier, you look like my 8th grade English teacher who flunked.
Yeah, you said that already.
Dickhead.
Yeah.
I can tell you're a dickhead in real life.
Yeah, you know what? You look like you have your own gravitational pull, you planet. Why don't you sit down there
Oh, that's
and
a
you
good
shut
one.
your mouth?
From a guy
You
wearing
shut
an
your
orange
mouth.
shirt with the
You
glare
shut
come
your
out
mouth.
your dome.
I'm the world champion for a reason. I'm the best that you have ever seen.
Certainly, he's no
I'm
Craven
looking
Rage.
over here, 'cause I'm
Listen,
afraid
we've
if I-
established tonight that Mr. Judgment is no Craven Rage. That's what we've established. We've established that he's no Craven
I'll give
Rage.
that he's not wearing a shitty mask.
Well, I mean, certainly, obviously, we're going to find out. I mean, we're going to certainly find out here, and I guess we'll find out. I mean, do you guys want to say anything else before we move on to closing thoughts? Is there anything else I should know about here?
I think we
Good.
covered the bases.
Okay, well, you know what then? Let's
I would say this: once we take that invitation to DBW, set us a time, place, and we'll be there.
We'll be connecting.
Okay, well, we'll have to find out. That's for sure here. And I want to give a big shout out, by the way, to Coach Chris Craven, who I know is obviously watching this, and he is watching with anticipated breath because he's going to be there as well, and he's going to have a match as well. And I hope that he will also run into Mr. Judgment maybe at the next DBW show coming up here, September the 23rd. And I guess maybe here Mr. Havoc is speaking maybe as the company line here. Mr. Judgment will purge your
Like
souls.
the Undertaker or what?
Oh my
Gonna
God.
purge our souls.
That's it, but see, that's a company with 3 initials that really does the kind of imitation stuff. This is a company that's original. They actually they're going places. This is not like those other companies with 3 initials. This is like we're in the big leagues now almost. All right, but you know what though? Let's get to closing thoughts here. Omen and Soldier, I want to give you closing thoughts first before I close out with the champion. He's a very busy man. I want to give him the closing thoughts last. But you gentlemen, what else would you like to say? It's your show, Omen, so I'm going to give you the floor first.
I've said what I wanted to say. I'm not going to waste my time anymore.
Okay, so it's not like when you were speaking with Skulls. You just want to go straight to the point. And anything, Soldier, on your mind? Any closing thoughts you want to share, Soldier? All right, well, I think at least the people
Are you doing
will
a Dick Marshall
see.
impression right now?
By the way, Soldier and Omen, I actually have a comment addressed to you, by the way. It's from, speaking of which, Ego, obviously. They're the tag team champions and obviously DBW, and they say, hey, Foundation, Ego will see you anytime. What do you say to that?
I will break AJ any day in half.
So AJ and Colin don't impress you then?
You think that because I thought the same thing, but I'll tell you, that guy is as tough as a $3 steak. I mean, he is ridiculously tough. For how small of a guy he is, he's fast as shit. He can fly around that ring. He's phenomenal, and that's all the credit I'll give him.
Omen and Soldier.
He's fast.
Omen and Soldier. If you don't mind me saying this, Omen and Soldier. Now, Ego is coming on to Sportswire very soon. Maybe you guys want to have a chat with them when they come on the show.
Oh, for sure.
So you would like to introduce yourselves then to them?
The Foundation doesn't back down from anyone.
All right, so you know what?
We don't have to introduce ourselves. They already know us.
They do. Okay. All right, so I'll certainly make sure that that they get a chance to see you guys live and in person on the screen here. And by the way, Omen and Soldier, somebody you guys did a number on, Jacob Collins says the Foundation.
Well, I'm glad he got out of the hole we buried him in. Good job, Jacob.
That was a big hole.
I swear it was Justin, though, not Jacob. So it might be a different guy.
That was Jason.
I thought it was Jack.
Jack.
So this guy ain't the guy we face.
I don't know, but I do know that Ego would like to say, you don't want the world to see me and AJ run circles around you two.
They don't want to fight us.
Heard this
Trust
plenty
us.
of times.
We're nothing like you guys have seen before.
We're not like the tag teams in EBW or
if we
DBW
face the Ego,
or
we would
BTW.
become DBW's tag team champs.
All right. Well, you know what? I think that this is something that a lot of people might want to see, and that's why Summer Bash is coming up July 5th to July 7th next year, presented by IMF and DKW. And we now know that DBW will also be a part of it. They're on YouTube as well, dominating Breakout Wrestling. They have their biggest show yet to date, September the 23rd, Hagerstown, Maryland. It is called World War. Be there or be square. Go to their company's page for more information. I know your time is very precious, Mr. Judgment, so I want to give you the floor. I want to give you final thoughts. Anything else you want to say? You are the final boss, so I give you the final thoughts. Anything else you want to share, plug, say, whatever is on your mind, the floor is definitely yours.
Well, I want to thank you for giving me the time to come on your show. Much appreciated. For myself and for all the members of the roster. I think it's great what you're doing to help other companies get exposure out there and just hear what all of these different guys have to say. I really enjoy it, and I know a lot of them do. Looking forward to the future shows that you're going to have on with some of the DBW talent. World War is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Our biggest show ever. It's the production value, the matches, just everything. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. And DBW is growing bigger. It's growing better. And a lot of great stuff to come. And as far as I go, I'm looking forward to World War to put him down for my title and prove yet again why I'm the final boss of DBW.
Well, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we are certainly looking forward to the future of Dominant Breakout Wrestling. They have their biggest show yet, and I got a couple of more comments here before we sign off for the evening. We have fought people twice the size as you, and he's laughing his ass off. Havoc would like to give those big DBW chants, and they are certainly loud and proud.
Use grammar properly.
Jacob Collins, by the way, wants to address you here. Message to these two: you're misinformed. CJ Black is not a good guy.
See, now I know this is totally a fake account because we had Jacob Collins saying he was a good guy, so this is a fake account.
So you don't know this guy then? This guy you
No,
never
this
heard
ain't. No.
Francis Hernandez, hi, how are you today? From Ricky Hernandez, your friend from Northridge, California. My birthday is August 13th. I think I've had this come up before on a show. Does anybody know a Francis Hernandez or Ricky Hernandez? I'm going to say no. Perfect grammar and everyone else understood. I have one more person before we sign off that wants to say something very quickly. And his name is Mr. Chris Craven. He heard Summer Bash, and I got to give him the floor for a couple of minutes before we move on. Coach, I saved you for last. The floor is yours.
Hello, gentlemen. Hello. IMF, Mr. Judgment.
Craven.
Good to have multiple federations in the house. Most definitely.
Hey, by the way, we got your application. We put it to stage 2 of review. So congratulations.
Our people will be calling you to interview you again. So you get
Okay. All right. Do I need to wear a suit and tie? Anyhow.
No, don't be like Joe Stone. Don't be.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Phillips, I've been beating down the door. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I not supposed to use his real name?
It's all good.
I'm sorry. The judgment thing just seems too Monday Night Raw. Mr. Phillips, I've been beating down Havoc's door trying to get a one-on-one with you, sir.
Oh?
Oh, yes. Oh is right.
So, you want a one-on-one match with Mr. Judgment?
I didn't say, well, hey, if you're going for a match, I'll go for a match. But one-on-one conversation. We'll start
conversation. There. I was going to say we were going to go to
I don't ever turn down a match.
a different conversation.
I won't ever turn down a match.
Yeah, so just message me on Facebook. I'll talk to you. I'll chat at you.
No, I did. I do want to say one thing to the foundation boys. Look, you guys know I got your best interest at heart. I favor you guys. I think you guys are good, but I wouldn't discount Maryland's talent.
Ooh, interesting.
When it comes to AJ and Colin,
We're not.
I know these guys personally. I've been in the ring with these guys. AJ is more durable than Spike Dudley. The boy can take bumps like anybody's business. But you're not going to really hurt him. And Judgment up there, he's up there smirking. I can see it. He knows.
He's going to see these guys on the 23rd of September. What do you want him to say?
Yeah.
I know. I get it. I think both DBW and IMF are both top tier here. You know what I mean? So the talent, regardless who comes out on top, it's definitely would be competitive to see the two go at it. Definitely competitive. I don't think it would be a landslide on one side or the other. I think it would be grueling. I think it would be a grind. I think it would be absolutely competitive and interesting to watch.
Well, I tell you what. Now that's where I'm going to agree with you on here. Is that IMF and DBW are the cream of the crop right now. There's some companies that come on Sportswire. They are what they are. But when I think of the cream of the crop right now, it's DBW, it's IMF. Certainly VTW I want to put in there as well. But these are the companies that, to me, it's like the Clash of the Titans. To me, it was like for all those years, people wanted to see Hogan and Flair, like the cover of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. When I think of the IMF and DBW, two of the most popular companies right now, I think this would be almost like mano a mano. It would be like a duel. It would be like in the Wild Wild West. This would be
like definitely, like you said, it's going to be like a Hogan versus Flair, not a Eric Bischoff versus Vince McMahon.
Well, let's hope not. Let's hope. I think these guys.
I got to say this too. I said this in the comments. Omen, I got love for you, man. You're awesome, soldier. Respect. When AJ made a comment about facing people bigger, or Colin made that comment. We had a guy here named Jay Leo in Maryland that was twice your size, Omen. I think there's footage. I want to. Matt Havoc might actually be able to share this with you. You might be able to find it. There's a match, I want to say, where I do believe it was AJ or a guy AJ's size. This guy, Jay Leo, clothesline, and the guy actually got stuck in his armpit.
Oh, my God.
Hung there for about 3 seconds.
So we're talking about like the Nasty Boy. Remember the Nasty Boys would do the armpit?
He was just dangling. He's stuck. He just got stuck in the rolls. It was hilarious. But I would say Judgment, DBW, don't count them out. IMF, don't count DBW out. I think you guys both have big things to bring to the table. And the fact that Judgment is going, Summer Bash will be there, that excites me even hell of a lot fucking more. Like, this is starting to be like Maryland's on the scoreboard now. With this Summer Bash,
and Maryland should be on the scoreboard,
right?
Like, it's not far from Ohio. They should be on the board, right? They should be, right?
It just makes it more fun for me. Like, I got respect for DBW. I got respect for IMF. Hell, some of the
you're the guy that got me introduced to DBW because of Havoc. I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for you through Mr. Havoc. I mean, we.
And if it wasn't for all that time, all those years spending with Havoc in Baltimore or in Biwa, like I said earlier, I made a comment, Ego's family, because these are guys I wrestled for with God knows how long.
Well, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just glad that someone from DBW recognized Summer Bash and recognized IMF, unlike EBW.
Interesting. That's a company. I'm going to plead the fifth on those three initials. That's the last thing I'm going to do.
I'll never bash another company. That's
why I'm
pleading
the fifth. That's what I'm doing.
We like to travel. We like to go to different companies.
Well, you guys have definitely traveled.
Maybe they should come out to the 23rd show and sit in the front row and get a good look.
Anyone is welcome. I'm telling you, it's even to see it live. I mean, it's a phenomenal experience. Which is why our crowds keep growing.
If you're out there right now, Dominating Breakout Wrestling on YouTube, check them out on Facebook, Gods_True_Son on Instagram. If you are in WC, if you were in ROEW, if you were in any company, RWA, TBW, VTW, come on down and see one of the biggest shows of the year, September the 23rd, World War. DBW is putting it on together. And then July 5th to the 7th next year, Summer Bash presented by the IMF and DKW. I am looking forward to the future of wrestling. I think, gentlemen, we're going to leave it off at here because I think we've got the people right where we want them. They got a taste of what's things to come. And I have a feeling on Tuesday's show when Brandon comes on, this is only going to continue.
Yeah, I'm stoked, man. This whole thing is developing into Havoc put on there DBW World War. This is turning into a cross-brand fed World War. Summer Bash is going to be off the hook.
It's going to be the war of the century. Forget about
Hey,
anything.
Tom, you're going to carpool with me, right? You're going to come down to Maryland. We're going to carpool together. We're going to go.
I don't know if we're carpooling together, but I'll certainly get there. I mean, I might be a Vince McMahon type and have to fly down to Ohio. That'll probably be my route to go. But
take the private jet. Yeah, I see.
And by the way, Tom, you're more than invited to World War if you can make it.
Yes, and I appreciate the invite. If there's a will, there's a way. I definitely want to, at the very least, promote the show because we have a lot of DBW shows ahead with coverage on Sportswire. So definitely do that. And CJ Black wants to say he's going to rewind the tape now and go watch the show because I think the show got really interesting the last 20 minutes because the news that broke is that the Foundation and DBW are going to see each other July 5th to the 7th. Summer Bash coming up next year. Coach Craven's going to be there. A number of guys from VTW, DBW, whatever names you want to throw out there, they're going to be in the house. And this is going to be the show of the summer next year. But in the meantime, the start of the fall and the end of the summer is going to take place September the 23rd with DBW's World War. And coverage on Sportswire is going to continue with that Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time with Brandon Costelli. Brandon's going to talk all things related to Double Cross, his journey, where he goes from here. And who knows? Maybe Omen and Soldier might say hello to him. Who knows? Maybe Coach might say hello to him. You never know.
I'm always available.
And Tom, let me know if you want to do a review show or anything.
I would love to do anything you want. I'll do it. If you tell me tomorrow we got DBW coverage, I'm ready. I'm ready to go at this point. So a lot of people are tuning in now. That's why you got to go back and watch the rest of the show. And Jacob Collins wants to say CJ Black and the IMF equals the Three Stooges. And by the way, Roland happy to say
wrong. Whoever this guy is doesn't get their facts straight. The Three Stooges were that Collins kid, the world champion of REW, Jason Storm. Hold on, Captain Law.
I thought it was CJ Craven Rage and Gunshot.
Well, I know. Listen, I'm actually going to bring it back to where Mr. Judgment can laugh. The Three Stooges are Curly, Larry, and Moe, and they come from my neck of the woods, Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. That's where I know the Three Stooges from. But on that note, obviously, I want to say one more thing before we go. Me, AJ, an open challenge to any team. We'll have.
You know what? Then Ego, you better show up to Summer Bash in July.
We accept.
We accept that.
They'll be there. They'll be there.
Well, you know what? I think Havoc said it best. DBW World War ! September 23rd. Yes, sir.
And at Summer Bash, all titles in IMF and DKW will be on the line in some way, some one day. Why not put yourself in the tag match? I know there's one more slot left. I think Foundation has to take it. So if you want to test your muscle, you're the best team. Come take the IMF tag titles, if you can.
Well, you know what? We'll have to find out. That's for sure. But one more time.
Judgment, look at that. Look, this is Judgment. It's getting cross-promoted. Look at this. They take they want both titles in the mixer.
Well, we want to see cross promotions, and I want to give out plugs one more time before we do sign off. YouTube, Dark Cryptic Wrestling. I'm going to make sure I give a huge plug to our friends in DKW. Obviously, Joe Stone. Obviously, Darkron, Matthew Forsaken. Also, IMF on YouTube, IMF Wrestling 666. And I can't stress it enough. Gods_true_son on Instagram. Dominating Breakout Wrestling on YouTube. Get in touch with these companies. I promise you, it'll be worth it. That would be easy. We already have a long resume of tag titles. So easy to add another one. So maybe challenge accepted. But I tell you what, Ego's coming on. I promise you, Ego's going to be here next week. We're going to figure out the date and time. These guys are going to be here with us. And I'm sure Soldier and Omen, you'll be there with us. But I'll be there. Okay, you'll be there too. I'll make sure everybody that wants to be there will be there.
You invited me.
I did. Yes, I did. I at this point, everybody's invited. Why not, right? But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I want to thank Soldier and Omen. I want to thank Coach and Mr. Judgment. Certainly, I hope that I don't meet the fate of purgatory with you. I certainly hope just yet I could get a few more days to avoid with Judgment Day. And certainly, I am going to rise to you. And thank you very much for coming on to the show. And I hope to see you again soon. And I'll do anything you want for DBW.
We will be in touch. Consider yourself saved. It was a blessing to be here with all of you mortals. And we'll be in contact.
I'm grateful to have a one-on-one, like to see this man or talk to this man in person for a change.
That's why I give people what the people want. Thank you, everybody here, for tuning in on Sportswire Radio. If you're on sportnarium.com/player, you're going to go back to some 80s music, so expect Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer. If you're on YouTube and Twitter, I'll be back here. Yeah, I do like, that's my favorite song, by the way. If you're on YouTube and Twitter, I'll be back tomorrow night with Hillbilly Tilly from the Alliance Wrestling League Sunday. Anthony Steele to be determined. And thank you. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you to everybody here for tuning in, and I can't wait for more coverage of DBW and Summer Bash ahead. Thank you. Good night, good morning, good afternoon.